Hey everyone, it's ViewBob, and I've got a bit of a confession to make. I think most Christmas music kind of sucks. Listen, like, the ones that aren't "All I want for Christmas is you" can be pretty good. I'm especially partial towards the more jazz side of Christmas. Those real jazz party songs that just sound like Christmas music, that stuff's awesome. But it doesn't really cover what I love about Christmas and the holiday season. It's one of my favorite times of year, one of my favorite times to write about. And good God, what's going on with that dancing snowman? Holy shit! But no, my favorite thing about Christmas isn't the gifts or the holiday lights or someone's Uncle Chuck dressed up as Santa Claus. I love the Christmas season because it's a time of reflection, a time of reverence for everything that's happened, and looking towards the future, looking towards a bright new day and a bright new year. There's a video game from 1999 called The Silver Case with two parallel plot lines. The first and main storyline is a bizarre psychedelic punk rock tale of an ensemble cast of investigators trying to track down a seemingly reincarnated 40-year-old serial killer who's come back to the streets and is wreaking havoc on their dystopian city. Now, I love that main story and have a lot to say about it, especially the fact that the main character's canonical name is Big Dick, but what captivates me arguably more is the second side story. This side story is much smaller, and it tells the tale of Tokyo Morishima, a freelance writer who's been contracted out by his old boss to write about this case. His story takes place over a year of his life in 1999, a time of a lot of uncertainty and quiet trepidation for the future. While the main story is great, Tokyo's is so much more human because of how much smaller in scale it is. And while at surface level his story seems to be about investigating this murder case, and it is, it's arguably more about Tokyo's internal conflict, his inability to get over this breakup with his fiancée who left him for his boss, the same boss that's contracted him to write about this, and his having to work with her and working through the breakup, first trying to get her back, and then working into the acceptance that she's no longer his. Damn, this actually makes me think of another Shrimp Olympics song that I could relate to Tokyo's storyline, but that's a video for another day. To make a long story short and slightly spoil the end of The Silver Case, but if you've never played it, and you should, it won't make sense to you anyway. In the end, Tokyo digs a little bit too deep and ends up finding out that he was raised as part of something called the Shelter Kids Project, which basically means that he's a government sleeper agent who can be activated at any time to kill. He starts receiving transmissions, orders to kill the main character, Big Dick, something he of course doesn't want to carry out. This is his main internal conflict in the final arc of his story. This is, of course, a big allegory for whether or not one's origins define them, and if you're an individual or defined by your past. But I don't have time to get into that right now. This video is about Christum. In October of that year, Tokyo ends up entering a coma, basically going on a vision quest, which we don't get to see. We only see him wake back up on December 31st, 1999. Tokyo clears the sleep from his eyes, and wakes up half amazed that he's still going and still alive. The only person he said anything about this to was Erica, his ex, who has over the past 2 months he was gone been relentlessly emailing him, getting more and more confused and sad, unsure why he's left or where he's going. The rest of the chapter after Tokyo wakes up is really beautiful. He comes back to in a weakened haze, having been in a coma for 2 months, and goes to his local bar, his life crumbling around him, this vision quest having solved almost nothing, the plot having progressed around him while he was away. Drinking in this bar on New Year's Eve, he drunkenly asks the bartender what he would do in his situation, and the bartender tells him that he'd bet on whatever choice Tokyo made. Tokyo basically says, "That's nice, but that doesn't really solve my problems," and drinks himself to sleep, waking up again a few hours after the bar has closed, on January 1st of 2000. The chapter ends with this very surreal scene of Tokyo walking out of the bar, closing it up and sliding the key under the door, and having this moment where he realizes that even though things may be difficult going forward, he's still going to keep on living, because that's all he can do, because time moves forward and so does he. It's moments like that, moments I live for during the holidays, above all the fantastic presents, great times with family, and awesome food I've had. It's the reflection, the coming to terms with one's self, the realizing everything's going to be okay, and the dawning of a new day that makes me really love the holiday season and New Year's. And this is a feeling that very few albums carry better than today's topic, Shrimp Olympics' 2018 album, Hot Meal. It's a very strange album. It's one very overlooked in the Shrimp Olympics chronology, as if there are like Shrimp Olympics fans other than me and 3 other people on the internet out there. But I think a lot of the reason for it being so overlooked is where it's placed in the Shrimp Olympics discography. A year before it, you have the Shrimp Olympics debut, a very good but very simplistic album played on almost exclusively acoustic guitar and bongo drums. And then a year right after Hot Meal, you have I Love Money, which I consider Shrimp Olympics' seminal masterpiece and one of the greatest rock albums of all time, full stop. And in between these two is where Hot Meal lies. It's a bit of a transitional phase, as it still has very simplistic, not very thickly layered songs, but it has more of Austin's jazzier songwriting, and plays around with more experimental instrumentation. It was also the soundtrack for a movie that never came out. Kind of. I talked to Austin about this, and he says the movie, also named Hot Meal, would have a completely different soundtrack, but the album Hot Meal kind of has like a song correlating to every scene or plot point more or less, which may be part of why this album has such a hero's journey type feel. And of course my dumb, stupid, dumb art kid brain latches onto the fact that this album was the kind of soundtrack for a movie that never released, something, the futility of life. I love that shit. Hot Meal is not about Christmas. It wasn't released during the holiday season, and I don't think any of the songs are about Christmas, but they all carry this kind of quiet yet beautiful melancholy to them. This feeling of so much bad having happened in the past, but looking forward to a brighter future and the things that may happen tomorrow. Songs on the album like Gretchen, a song about working a dead-end job overnight at a store, convey a sense of hopelessness and stasis in one's life. However, this feeling is accented by other songs, like the album's lead single Song of My Dreams, a song about meeting someone's mentor in their dreams and learning to make movies and play music. While the album can at times be very down in the doldrums, there's always a sense that the best is yet to come. This was recorded by Austin when he was 19 or 20, a period of a lot of change in his life. I imagine that these were feelings getting worked into the album as it was written. I recently talked to Austin over Instagram about the making of the album, and when I asked him about the possible Christmas influence of it, he said, "I live in Minnesota, so there's a lot of snow for about a third of the year. There's no way any artist can escape the influence of winter in the Midwest. For me, it's an incredibly introspective and emotional time. I think you're right to equate Hot Meal with Christmas, or at least winter. I started writing stuff for Hot Meal before Evenings came out, but it definitely reached a climax during the winter. I don't think any of my other albums have had that particularly seasonal journey." I talked at length that night with Austin about the making of this album. He was actually a lot more vulnerable and sentimental with me than I was expecting, so I'm not going to show most of the interview directly, but Austin and I talked at length about how the album was very influenced by a recent breakup he had gone through at the time. At the same time, though, and even though he didn't say it directly, I got the general feeling that this album was influenced just as much by heartbreak as it was by spending time with his friends. The cover artwork is a picture of Austin and his friend Joe enjoying a 40. The song Christmas Dimension is inspired by bandmate Tegan DeVoe's bedroom. Austin had so many stories to tell me about this person who lent a keyboard on that track, or that person who sung on this track, but the most poignant thing he told me was how he described working through his feelings on the breakup to me. He said, "When you play a note on the bass, there's the initial strike of the note, and then there's about a millisecond of lull, and then the note reaches its purest form of sound. No sound of the pick striking it, no feedback. Sometimes a heavy event like a breakup doesn't hit you as hard until a while later, when you have some perspective on it. These two clashing atmospheres are really what makes the album a Christmas album to me." Towards the end of this interview about the making of the album, Austin told me that it had probably his favorite finisher out of any Shrimp Olympics album. It ends with this 3-part, mostly instrumental suite, tracks 13, 14, and 15, Hot Shower, The Flood, and In Paris, Carelessly. The first 2 tracks have this emotional build-up. They're very texture-based, slow trance songs, and they finally cinematically build up to the 3rd song, In Paris, Carelessly, which is a very slow, very quiet jam lamenting one's inability to get over a breakup, but overall acceptance of it. It's a very beautiful, very poignant moment, and I think it's one of my favorite things about the New Year's, the anticipation of new days to come, and them being basically a blank slate that you could write whatever you want on. It's a time to make yourself better, and as much as I hate New Year's resolutions, they really are a good way to go into the new year. These two atmospheres, one of finally reconciling your feelings on a big breakup, and the other of spending time with friends, they should clash, but they don't. They meld together and they become one big portrait of life, of getting together with one's friends, maybe after a long time away, maybe after just a week without seeing them, and working through everything that's happened in your lives, becoming better people together, and learning that there's still tomorrow. That's what the holiday season is really about to me, and that's why Hot Meal is probably my favorite Christmas album. Even without songs of Santa Claus, of Baby Jesus, or... Holy shit, did that kid just hit the whoa?